is a well-known fact that wherever you may be, you will see either a complex or simple mathematical formula behind the objects, animals, people, colors, sound waves, and of course, these letters in which you are probably reading through your monitor or television screen. Your highly advanced computer, which is going through a logical binary coded system with multifaceted software programs and advanced logistics, enables and facilitates your lives which was never seen before. Computers did not appear overnight. Matter of fact, less than 30 years ago, internet was not even in our vocabulary. This by itself is a wondrous miracle that we take for granted. Before all this magic Big Banged, we went through great changes in our numeral system in order for us to arrive at this important time of our lives. The positional system that we use today did not exist. A brief history of this will be explained very soon. Now in this computer age that we live in, we can truly understand the importance of mathematics and how it helps us in our everyday life. Not only do we comprehend the value of its significance, we can either appreciate it or not. God knew that we were going to arrive at this critical point of intelligence in our lives, and therefore He composed an earth-shattering, simple to understand but impossible to imitate mathematical composition, not only to prove its existence, but challenges the greatest mathematicians on earth and stomps them. It is far beyond human capabilities. This mathematical composition is the Quran. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ar-Rahman Alam al-Quran Khalaqa insan Alamahul bayan. The main focus of this matter is similar to what Abraham asked his Lord in the following verse of chapter 2. Abraham said, "My Lord, show me how you revive the dead." God said, "Do you not believe?" He said, "Yes, but I wish to reassure my heart." God said, "Take 4 birds, study their marks, place a piece of each bird on top of a hill, then call them to you. They will come to you in a hurry. You should know that God is Almighty, most wise." I am using this example due to the fact that Abraham was the founder of the 3 major monotheistic religions of today: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. So dear viewers, this is to reassure the hearts of the believers, and by doing so, it will disturb the disbelievers. Convince the Christians and the Jews that the Quran is a divine scripture. Straighten the faith of the faithful. To remove all traces of doubts from the hearts of the Christians, Jews, as well as the believers, and to expose those who harbor doubt in their hearts. And finally, there is one last part of history that we need to be aware of before I commence the earth-shattering, simple to understand but impossible to imitate mathematical composition that will prove the existence of God and challenge the greatest mathematicians on earth. This is the history of gematria. This was and still is an alphanumerical system that is applied today, but the positional base 10 system became more dominant and more commonly used due to its simplicity of only having digits from 1 to 9 and 0 to remember, instead of an assigned number to every letter of the alphabet. Now, the positional base 10 system was originally discovered in India with the help of Persian mathematicians. Then it was introduced to the Europeans by the Arabs. Thus came the term Hindu-Arabic numerals. The Arabs also introduced the knowledge of how to make paper, which was originally invented in China, but the Chinese did not want to divulge such information. So the Arabs took it by force, and the Arabs taught it to the Western societies and brought algebra, which is another huge step in intellectual advancement for the future. The Europeans discovered the printing press, thus giving the Europeans accessibility of history, mathematics, and other types of acknowledgement for a lower cost due to mass productions for the people. Since the Quran was revealed at a time where the positional system did not exist, I am going to apply both numeral systems, which will also prove that the Quran adopts to every era. So let's do a quick analysis on this. On the left side we have the Greek alphabets. In the middle we have the Hebrew alphabets, and on the right we have the Arabic alphabets. And for those who speak Arabic and who are watching this, You might notice that the alphabetical order is not in the sequence in which you are brought up today. This is because it has been modified recently, and the one we have here was the original order. As you can see, it's called the Abjad system because of the four first letters, which is A, B, J, and D, or Alif, Ba, Jim, and Dal. This was also the Arabic numerals when the Quran was revealed and after. The alphabetical order is nearly identical to the Hebrews and Greeks. Their numerical values are also identical, and this is because of the trading. Was and still is the best way for the economy to advance. Thus, the major communities had a universal means of communicating with their currency, which coincides with their alphabets. So for example, if the Greeks wanted to exchange 40 apples for 40 oranges with the Arabs or Jews, the M sound is what they used to describe the number 40. I picked these three languages because they are among the three major monotheistic scriptural languages. And I will also be demonstrating the importance of applying these alphanumerical numbers with the Quran, and here is an example of a simple calculation. Here we have the word wahid, which is the equivalent of the word one in English. Now, we can see that the wahid, which is waw, alif, ha, and dal, which is W, A, H, and D, has a value of 6, 1, 8, and 4. If you add this together, it gives us 19. In the year 609 AD, the Quran was revealed to the final prophet Muhammad in specific orders of revelations of a 23-year time frame. I will present to you here the first 5 revelations in its chronological order in 5 simple parts. The first revelation, embryo, al-alaq. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Read in the name of your Lord who created. He created man from an embryo. Read, and your Lord most exalted teaches by the means of the pen. He teaches man what he never knew. This is how the first revelation ended, and this first revelation consists of 19 Arabic words. The second revelation, the pen, al-qalam. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Nun, the pen, and what they write. You have attained a great blessing from your Lord. You are not crazy. You have attained a recompense that is well deserved. You are blessed with a great moral character. You will see, and they will see, which of you are condemned. Your Lord is fully aware of those who strayed off his path, and he is fully aware of those who are guided. Do not obey the rejectors. They wish that you compromise, so they too can compromise. This is how the second revelation ended, and this second revelation consists of 38 Arabic words. The third revelation, cloaked, al-Muzammil. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. O you cloaked one, meditate during the night except rarely, half of it or a little less, or a little more, and read the Quran from cover to cover. We will give you a heavy message. The meditation at night is more effective and more righteous. You have a lot of time during the day for other matters. You shall commemorate the name of your Lord to come ever closer and closer to him. Lord of the East and the West, there is no God besides him. You should choose him as your advocate. And remain steadfast in the face of their utterances, and disregard them in a nice manner. This is how the third revelation ended, and this third revelation consists of 57 Arabic words. The fourth revelation, the hidden secret, Al-Mudaththir, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. O you hidden secret, come out and warn, extol your Lord, purify your garment, forsake what is wrong, be content with your lot, steadfastly commemorate your Lord. Then when the horn is blown, that would be a difficult thing, for the disbeliever is not easy. Let me deal with the one I created as an individual. I provided him with lots of money and children to behold. I made everything easy for him, yet he is greedy for more. He stubbornly refused to accept these proofs. I will increasingly punish him, for he reflected, then decided. Miserable is what he decided. Miserable indeed is what he decided. He looked, he frowned and whined. Then he turned away arrogantly. He said, "This is but clever magic. This is human-made. I will commit him to retribution." What retribution? Thorough and comprehensive, obvious to all people. Over it is 19. Alayha tis'ata ashar. In retrospect of Revelations 1 to 4, there is a mathematical pattern of multiples of 19. The first revelation contained 19 words, which is 1 by 19. The second revelation contained 38 words, which is 2 times 19. And the third revelation contained 57 words, which is 3 times 19. The fourth revelation brought the number 19 itself. Alayha tis'ata ashar. Over it is 19. As we can see, over the Quran is in patterns of multiples of 19 so far. And now, the fifth revelation, which is the first chapter, and revelation revealed completely with the 19-lettered opening statement as the first verse, which occurs throughout the whole Quran, as seen below. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Each word in this occurs in multiples of 19 throughout the whole Quran. And now, the earth-shattering, simple to understand but impossible to imitate mathematical composition that will prove the existence of God and challenge the greatest mathematicians on earth and stomps them. It is far beyond human capabilities. This is Chapter 1, Revelation 5, Al-Fatiha. The key. This is the chapter in which every Muslim recites during their daily contact prayer with God. Since this chapter was revealed completely, I am going to do a full mathematical analysis over it, and every component in it are in multiples of 19. You might be wondering, why 19? After the mathematical examination of this chapter, the question to why 19 will be answered. So let's start with the verses. As you can see, there are 7 verses in this chapter, and I am going to concatenate each verse in its sequential sequence, thus forming one long number. In between the highlighted red lines you see chapter 1, verse 1, 2, 3, all the way to 7. Why am I indicating this golden number 1 is very important, because I need to show you which chapter I'm using instead of using chapter 28 or 29. There's 114 chapters in the Quran, and 114 is also a multiple of 19. So as you can see, this long number, which is another way of seeing it, 11,234,567, is a multiple of 19. This is telling us that the verses after 1400 years has not been changed, and also that you cannot add another verse nor remove a verse due to the fact that it will no longer be a multiple of 19. But this does not mean that a letter was not added or removed throughout the years. Therefore, I purposely separated each letter in every verse and counted its total right here. So you can see that every single letter in every verse has been counted. And by doing this, we have the sum of letters for every verse. Now I'm going to substitute each verse with the total sum of letters that correspond to it. As you can see on the highlighted red lines, the number of verse 1 is going to be substituted for its number of letters, 19 in verse 2, and so on. Again, I am concatenating the letters per verse, which is again giving us a gigantic number, which is a multiple of 19. This is telling us that the total sum of letters in correlation with these verses are protected with this basic principle of being in multiples of 19. Meaning that the sum of letters in correlation with these verses had not been changed since the past 1400 years. So if anyone were to add or remove a letter, not only that it won't make any poetical sense, but it will be exposed. But the human being is a clever creature, and the possibilities of changing a word for its synonym with the exact same amount of letters is possible. And that can mean there is a flaw. For example, if I say, every good boy does good, to every good boy does fine. The word good and its synonym fine, which has the exact same amount of letters and similar definitions, can be replaced. You can replace the good for the fine, thus giving it a possibility of being modified without being noticed, which means it can be corrupted with personal opinions and poor knowledge. Therefore, the numerical values of each letter in Arabic that I introduced to you earlier about will now play a significant role. So you cannot change a word for its synonym. Hence, it's giving the numerical values of each letter its importance of being applied to conserve each word without any distortion, leaving it in its pristine purity state. Here is an example of how to calculate the sum of each individual letter with its numerical values per verse. As you can see, every single letter has been changed to its numerical value, and I put spaces so you can see which letter is what or what number is which letter. And by adding all of these individually, it will give us a sum of 786. As a result, the sum of the letters in the first verse has a total of a numerical value of 786, the second verse 581, and so on. Now pay close attention to the fifth verse. They both have, and the first verse. The fifth and the first have the exact same amount of letters, yet their numerical values are not the same. This clearly shows the difference between both verses, even though they have the same amount of letters. And now I'm going to assign every numerical value next to the number of letters in between the highlighted red lines, as you can see, in which it is forming a 38-digit number. So you have the number of letters and its total value next to each one. This is again a multiple of 19, and also just 38 digits, which is 19 times 2. This contains all the parameters of this chapter in a simple to understand, purely mathematical method. And here is the impossible to imitate part. I am going to place all the parameters in which we have here backwards. Not backwards in the sense of placing the digits chapter 1, then 19786 all the way to 6009 to 900634 and so on, all the way to 1. I'm going to put it backwards in the sense of putting each individual component from right to left, just as the Arabs and the Hebrews write. Thus the 38-digit number looks like this. which is again a multiple of 19. This is a mathematical phenomenon. For those who are not quite sure of how impressive this is, here is a very simple example to see this amazingness. Let's say, for example, I wrote a book and my first chapter has 3 verses. And the first verse has 1 word, which is God. The second verse has 4 words, which is he has no partners. And the third verse would be, which would also have 4 words, which is and none equals him. Now, if I apply the same way of concatenating this invented chapter by creating one number with the words, giving us 144, and I chose the number 12 as my main multiple for this imaginary chapter / book, my simple 3-verse chapter is a multiple of 12. But if I were to put it backwards, as I just showed you earlier right now, this imaginary 3-verse chapter would not be a multiple of 12. Because instead of being 144, it would be 441, which is divided by 12, it gives us 36.75, which is not a rounded number, or it's not a multiple of 12. And 12 is also, it's not a prime number. So back to the chapter, to the key. As you see how important this is, backwards, which is astonishing. For those who are not mathematicians, this is clearly a miracle. And if some of you might have been wondering, how come the total, I mean, you didn't put all the components in it, like the verses with the letters and the numerical values. Well, here you have it. You have the chapter 1, verse 1, number of letters, 786, which is numerical value of those 19 letters, and so on, which is, again, a multiple of 19. And finally, there is 2 final calculations I would like to finalize this chapter with. Before going in details about the question some of you are probably still wondering, why 19? So this before last mathematical analysis is the number of times your lips touch. In Arabic, there are only 2 letters in which your lips touch. The letter B and the letter M. There is no letter P in Arabic. I put in bold letters and the letter B's and the letter M's for the viewers who do not speak Arabic or know the Arabic language, and I will recite it to you in Arabic. And for those who can understand Arabic, you just have to count with me with the B and the M. So let's go. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim 4 times. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen 3 times. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim twice. Maliki Yawmiddin twice. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in once. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim twice. Siratal ladhina an'amta alayhim ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. As you can see, if you add the total sum of all this, it gives us 19. There are 4 letter B's and 15 letter M's. So 4 plus 15 is 19. Yet the letter B has a value of 2 and the letter M has a value of 40, as we saw earlier in the beginning. And if you do 2 times 4, which is the number of times the B is repeated, it gives us 8. And if we do 40 times 15, which is the number of times the letter M is repeated, it gives us 600. Now if we do 600 plus 8, it gives us 608, which is again a multiple of 19. And now, the final calculation for this chapter. I call it perfection is the key. Before I show you the ultimacy of this chapter, here is the translation of the earth-shattering, simple to understand but impossible to imitate verses of the key. Chapter 1. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. Praise be to God, Lord of the universe, most gracious, most merciful, Master of the day of judgment. You alone we worship, you alone we ask for help. Guide us in the right path, the path of those whom you've blessed, not of those who deserve wrath, nor of the strayers. We saw before that you cannot change a word for its synonym here with the exact same amount of letters. But there is one last clever trick in which the human beings can pull from their sleeves. Instead of substituting a word for its synonym with the exact same amount of letters, you can invert a word with another word in which the letters and numerical values remain identical. For example, in the third verse, here in chapter 1, it is said, most gracious, most merciful. I can invert the word most merciful in place of most gracious, thus keeping the same amount of letters and numerical values. So what I am going to do now is transform each individual letters for its numerical value, thus forming a 274-digit number in which it includes the chapter, following with the total number of verses, then the first verse and next to it its number of letters, followed by the numerical value of every individual letter, and then followed by the number of the next verse, followed by the number of the letters in this verse, followed by the numerical values of every letter in this verse, and so on to the end of the chapter. Thus the last component is 50. And this gigantic number is a multiple of 19. Therefore, you cannot change the position of a word in a verse, making this chapter and the rest of the Quran, which will be in the next video, perfect. And now for those who are wondering, why 19? Here is the first main reason. The word one, wahid in Arabic, in reference to God in the Quran, is used only 19 times to remind us the message of the Quran and the first commandment. There is only one God. The second reason is that the Arabic word wahid, which means one, has a numerical value of 19. The third reason is that the number 19 is only mentioned once in the Quran. As you can see here, there is an interconnecting relationship with the number 1 and 19, with its occurrences in the Quran and its numerical value. Now the fourth reason is that the number 1 is the first numeral and 9 is the last numeral, as to proclaim God's attribute in chapter 57, verse 3, which 57 is 19 times 3. As the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last. Finally, the fifth reason is that the number 1 and 9 looks the same in all languages, for example, in English and Arabic. In addition, 19 is a prime number, thus making the odds more incredible. This great prophecy was fulfilled in January 1974. The momentous discovery was made by Dr. Rashad Khalifa that the number 19 is the Quran's common denominator, in which it coincided with the lunar calendar Dhul Hijjah 1393 after Hijrah. The Quran was revealed in 13 before Hijrah. This makes the number of years from the revelation of the Quran to the revelation of its mathematical phenomena 1393 plus 13, which is the year 1406, or 19 by 74. As noted above, the unveiling of the miracle took place in January 1974. The correlation between 19 by 74 lunar years and 1974 solar years could not escape notice. This is especially uncanny in the view of the fact that the number 19 and its function is only mentioned in chapter 74 in the Quran. And that's why. Over it is 19. We appointed angels to be guardians of hell, and we assigned their number to disturb the disbelievers, to convince the Christians and Jews, to straighten the faith of the faithful, to remove all traces of doubt from the hearts of Christians, Jews, as well as the believers, and to expose those who harbor doubt in their hearts, And the disbelievers, they will say, what did God mean by this symbol? God thus sends astray whomever he wills and guides whomever he wills. None knows the soldiers of your Lord except he. This is a reminder for the people. Absolutely by the moon, and the night as it passes, and the morning as it shines. This is one of the greatest miracles, a warning to the human race, for those among you who wish to advance or regress.